it just got real as a shocking new report has dropped from Elliot Friedman, revealing some huge information surrounding the Leafs' pursuit of Mikko Rantanen. We'll break down exactly what that report entails and discuss what it means going forward, as well as a couple of other updates as things are really starting to pick up. But before we get into it, folks, quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. If you're part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Leafs content. Your guys' support has been unbelievable. At 70% of you who are watching right now are not subscribed. So thank you guys for your continued support as we are on the road to, of course, 15,000 subscribers. But ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot to go over today. And the Leafs are coming off of a very big win yesterday against the Carolina Hurricanes. And within that, we saw some reports in the Hockey Night in Canada. But we also have some new reports surrounding both Elliot Friedman, a bunch of different reporters, as it pertains to Mikko Rantanen and the Toronto Maple Leafs. You can see this here from Elliot Friedman. The Leafs are among the teams that are interested or could be interested in Hurricanes forward Mikko Rantanen as a rental. And this is actually very interesting because he gave some more insight within the actual Hockey Night in Canada thing and some of his podcasts as well. This situation just got very real as it pertains to Mikko Rantanen getting traded because of what Elliot Friedman had to say about his current status in Carolina, and B, the Leafs are among a couple other teams very much in on the stir.
Yeah, so there's a lot up in the air right now. And if you're not a Leafs fan watching this and you're interested into how Mikko Rantanen could become a Toronto Maple Leaf, there is a very real possibility that he's actually flipped again at this year's trade deadline by the Carolina Hurricanes. And we'll get into the specifics in a second as to why, but there's a very real possibility. And if they do, they will be retaining salary, and he already has half of his salary retained by the Chicago Blackhawks in the initial trade. So his salary cap or his cap hit for the rest of the season would come in at about $2.3 million. So any contender can absolutely make that work, including the Leafs, who currently have $2.2 million in cap space. And Brad Treliving would find a way to get an extra 100 grand if he can. It would be a lot easier to move that money than some of the other trades we've been talking about. And this is getting Mikko Rantanen. Now, a lot of Leaf fans are looking at that and going, why would you do that? Are you going to be able to re-sign him? What happens with Mitch Marner? I think with the salary cap going up, you can actually still re-sign both of them if you want in the offseason. And I actually believe that Rantanen, we'll get into it later in the video as well, would actually re-sign with the Toronto Maple Leafs if they were to acquire him at the deadline. But there's a lot of moving pieces, and I think it's actually more likely than not at this point, and we'll get to some of the Canes fans' reactions too, that they do move off of him at this year's trade deadline.
Yeah, and obviously, one of the reasons all of this is possible is because the Chicago Blackhawks retained a hefty percentage in the first trade that sent him from, of course, Colorado to the Hurricanes. So now, in any subsequent trade, you would assume, and reports are indicating, that the Hurricanes would now retain another bit, which would make this cap a lot easier. Here from Darren Dreger, as Mikko Rantanen contemplates his future, the speculation builds. The Canes clearly want to extend and are constantly communicating with the agent Andy Scott. Rantanen remains unsure. The Canes may consider a trade. It's too soon to say. And within, like you mentioned, within the Hockey Night in Canada, Elliot Friedman basically came out and said that the Hurricanes at this juncture have offered him a 9-figure contract, so $100+ million. And Mikko Rantanen's response was that he isn't sure as of now, not that it was a yes, not that it was a no, that he's somewhere in the middle. And that screams to me, hey, I don't know what the direction of the Carolina Hurricanes is. I'm not exactly sure how good they are going forward, because you keep in mind, Mikko Rantanen is a 28-year-old. He's entering his prime. Obviously, he's slowed down a bit since coming to Carolina. There's been some concerns about, his points being inflated because he was on a line pairing with one of the best players in the world in Nathan MacKinnon, and we saw that with Team Canada. So there is some concerns there. But again, you can see this here. Freeman reported that Mikko Rantanen was offered a 9-digit contract, still needs time to process what happens, hasn't given a yes or no. And we've seen it not just in the NHL, but across sports leagues in general. Usually when you make a trade of this caliber, the player is willing to extend. I mean, you can think about as recent as, the Raptors of Brandon Ingram extended almost right away, who was going to be a free agent as well. This is, it's interesting that he doesn't want to extend, and he also hasn't seen much success so far on the Carolina Hurricanes.
No, he's really struggled since he went over to Carolina. Now, that being said, he hasn't played that many games, obviously. He got traded and then he went to the Four Nations. They've had a couple weeks off, right? And he's barely played or been in Raleigh, North Carolina, right? So there is that side of it where, yes, I do believe the player where, he was traded from the team he's always been with. You won a Stanley Cup there. Obviously, there's some emotions there. There's some shock there. He's still getting used to it, getting acclimated to the new team. But on the other side of things, too, for him to turn down that contract extension with a good team, the Carolina Hurricanes are a good team. Personally, I don't don't believe in them. They keep getting knocked out the same way year after year, and they haven't made any changes, similar to the Leafs in some degree, right? But I don't believe in their direction either. I don't think they have direction, right? Or much of a future. I feel like they're somewhat getting older as well. And at the same time, they don't have any, budding stars besides maybe Seth Jarvis, who isn't a superstar in the league, right? So I understand his concern there. And they offered him that contract, and he said, hey, I got to think about it. He doesn't have that much time to think about it. The trade deadline's coming up pretty quickly here. And, if you were to get traded to the Leafs, I see a future with the Leafs. I think the Leafs are trying to win a Stanley Cup for the next 3 seasons. So I could see him re-signing with the Leafs or maybe even the Rangers, right? I think he wants to go to a big market where they will be willing to offer him $14 million. And I think the Leafs, the Rangers, just to name a few, would absolutely do that. So it's going to get really interesting as we head into the trade deadline. But looking at this year and the fact that I think that the Leafs could actually re-sign Mikko Rantanen, I think that, it would make a lot of sense for the Leafs to trade for him, considering you're only taking on $2.3 million this season.
Yeah, it's very exciting. The Leafs are linked to a bunch of different players, which of course have future videos on as well. And the Rantanen situation here has nothing to do with his production through 6. It has nothing to do with the money, because Carolina is fully prepared. It has everything to do with him signing long term. The noise in the media is carefully fabricated to put pressure on the player to make a decision, so the team can explore a trade if he says no. We saw this play out with Rob Brindamore's camp and stirred up the media to try to pressure the organization to agree on a new contract. I mean, as it pertains to Mikko Rantanen, again, he is an absolutely fantastic player. And despite these struggles, 66 points in 55 games this year. As you start to look at, a bunch of the targets, Brandon Tanev is a guy we're going to be discussing in the future as well. John Ferris had a breakout year. But regarding Mikko Rantanen, he has the potential to be one of the best players, and he has been one of the best players in the NHL. And if you have a chance, it never happens where you have a chance to get this caliber of player at the cap hit that you're able to get him. You throw the firm at him, right? That's what happens. You think about last season, I believe over 100 points, 104 points, year before 105 points, back-to-back seasons with 100 plus points. You're able to get that guy in the middle of his prime, just turned 28, at a cap hit that is not only reasonable, but ridiculously low, similar to that of David Kempf. You do it 9 times or 10 times out of 10. See this here. Mikko Rantanen will only be traded if he straight up tells the GM that he will not play in Raleigh no matter what. I think that Rantanen will not only like Raleigh, but also love playing for the Canes. I can see him signing an 8-year extension here and not hitting free agent. That's the other side. There is still a chance he resigns in Carolina, but if they're even slightly concerned about that, making a big trade like that with the with the Colorado Avalanche, so many different names at the start of the sea, it would be kind of disastrous to have him leave in free agency, because I do not see this Carolina Hurricanes team as one capable of winning the cup, even with Mikko.
Yeah, and I think that, Mikko Rantanen coming in here, he hasn't said yes immediately. They offered him that contract, and that is a massive contract extension, and he said no to a degree, right? Like, he didn't say flat out, no, I will not be signing this, but he said, I need time, right? He didn't sign it immediately. So, when you look towards the future, like you mentioned, if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs, this is a once in, I don't even know how many years opportunity to get a player of this caliber. He's an elite player. Those point totals, despite his struggles in Carolina, this is a fantastic opportunity. Yes, the Leafs are very top heavy, but this guy can put you over the edge. He can help you get over that hump, right? I do believe that. And also, I've been thinking about this recently, last couple of days since this has been coming out. This could be a bit of an insurance policy where if you were to make this trade and you had a little bit of a handshake agreement with the player, like, hey, it's a sign and trade, or yes, he's going to extend 100%. We're going to offer you this contract. If the playoffs do not go the way you would have liked again, or Mitch Marner does not produce again, maybe you do just let Mitch Marner walk, and then you have Mikko Rantanen, right? So there's a lot of uncertainty heading into this year's, not only trade deadline, this year's playoffs for the Leafs, and then obviously free agency, because they have to sign a few players like Marner and Tavares, but they also don't have to sign those players, right? Like, you would like to extend them in a perfect world, but maybe they take the team in a different direction. So it's going to be very interesting. But like we mentioned, for $2.3 million, if you can go get this guy, Easton Cowan, Fraser Mitten, a first-round pick, whatever you want is out the door if he's going to come with an extension as well.
Yeah, it just got real, folks. And a couple weeks away, March 7th, we're going to keep you up to date with all the latest news. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. Let us know down below. Do you think this is going to happen? Because this very real world where he is traded, and hopefully it's to the Leafs. Cheers.